Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope everybody's doing great. I just wanted to make this video to spark a deeper conversation about halal ethical investing, and going beyond just the technical halal fund screeners that we typically only rely on. Typically, halal investing focuses on a few financial ratios, such as the following. Interest-bearing debt should not exceed 30% of the market capitalization. Interest-earning non-compliant investments should not exceed 30% of market capitalization, and non-permissible income should not exceed a total of 5% of the total revenue. And these screenings are important and have taken us as Muslims to a better place for us navigating the financial markets. But I think it's also time we look further than just determining if these boxes are checked when looking at the company's balance sheets. I think we need to determine and look at the company profile as a whole and look at if these companies, um, you know, if these companies do not support and follow our beliefs as Muslims. We're those screens don't capture the ethical dimension. As Muslims, we need to understand we're not just shareholders, we're also moral agents. We should not just be picking a company that fits with what we think will generate the highest return if the company morally conflicts with our principles and beliefs as Muslims. So getting in deeper into this conversation, we need to ask a deeper question and look beyond the current and simple Sharia compliant screening. We should consider our investments to truly align with our values as Muslims. Are we unknowingly funding companies that support Zionism, profit from Uyghur forced labor, or contribute to injustice as a whole as Muslims? It's easy to think that if a company passes a halal screen, okay, it's good, but we need to go further. Take, for example, Apple. It may pass Sharia screens financially, but when we investigate deeper, we find troubling labor practices in its supply chain. So we have to ask, are we unintentionally empowering companies that harm others, especially Muslim communities? So if we are investing in, say, Google, and Google is a known proponent to, fund the Zionist movement, why are we as Muslims, putting in our dollars to, help grow Google and help sustain its business plan and business model when a large portion of potentially of their business model is, making sure that the Zionist movement continues. Remember, we as Muslims have purchasing power and investment power. Every dollar we invest helps a company thrive or challenges it to change. We can't just be passive investors. We need to align our portfolios with justice. So I think, this is the framework and mindset that I think as us as Muslims should start wearing this cap now rather than just looking at the financial screens, because again, our dollar counts. We are large proponents and large contributors to the economy, and who we invest in ultimately can determine who will be successful and who won't be in the marketplace. Let's be real. I think, this conversation, I have to give credit to, this individual named Al Kebab on the Reddit forum Halalinvestor, where he kind of really sparked this conversation in the first place. And, as you can see here, that there was a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth, and I think this discussion should continue on. So Al Kebab kind of made a list of halal and SPUS stocks that support Zionism. And for those who don't know, halal and SPUS are ETFs, and those are the two ETFs that are kind of the largest ETFs in the halal investing space currently. So he took a look at their holdings and went through them one by one and did some preliminary research on whether these businesses support Zionism or not. By support, he defined it as they have significant presence with Zionists, such as doing business with them, or they themselves invested in Zionist companies. So he provided a list below of companies that that support Zionism. You can see Google, Microsoft, Apple, Meta. These. If you look at their holdings, SPUS and Halal, you'll see that they do make up a large proponent of their holdings. So he also did well in determining which companies that he personally has his money in, that he felt that didn't were ethically halal ethic or halal and ethical. So these were the companies, and if you are interested in this Google Sheet link, I will provide it in the chat as well. So take a look at this, and all kudos goes to the Reddit user Ethical for getting this conversation going. And I think again, this conversation needs to be had. And if us as Muslims, continue to let the Sharia portfolio companies know that okay, we don't want to invest in SPUS, we don't want to invest in halal by letting Wahed know as well. And then they'll I think they'll ultimately have to if their assets under management decrease, I think they're gonna have to start appealing to us the us as Muslims, right? They're doing it already, but they're going to have to do a better job at that. And I think we have to kind of get that conversation going. And if we get this conversation going consistently, I think we'll be moving in the right direction. So before I continue on the presentation, it would be very helpful if you kind of help me grow the channel and help grow my risk and help grow Halal Investor, and share it with your peers and other Muslims who want to invest the halal way and the ethical way. So please share this with your network and raise awareness about ethical halal investing. Jazakallah khairan, and I will continue on. So, what's the motivation behind this conversation? This initiative is driven by moral conscience. We don't just want to meet Islamic financial rules. We want to build a portfolio that reflects Islamic ethics in action. So here's a three-tier approach in terms of how you should be looking at it when you're trying to build your own portfolio. So first, you look at the Sharia compliance. Start with the technical screens using the scholarly work, AOFI, and other Sharia auditing standards to look and determine if this company passes that first check, right? And I think that's really critical. And we've gotten to a good place right now, alhamdulillah. But then I think now we need to get the ethical screening part is where I think us as a Muslim community, we're currently lacking. So you need to look and we layer in the moral issues, Zionism, forced labor, oppression of Muslims. The list can go on and on, obviously, but we need to, us as Muslim, we need to determine what the ethical screening is. And if we can mobilize and determine, kind of get a list going where we can, confidently agree with this company passes the ethical screening, this company does not pass ethical screening, then I think we'd be in a better place. And then ultimately your goal is to invest with integrity and uplift the communities. This is more than about money, it's about values, and our dollar, can go a long way. So once you're able to pass these two screenings, then you kind of try to build a portfolio that aligns with your Islamic ethics. So getting into the next slide here, getting more into going back to Mr. El Kebab's research. Let's explain it in more detail because I do think it's a good place to start. This is because he reviewed how ETFs are common in the halal investing space. So he looked into SPUS and halal, which are the largest halal ETFs by market cap currently. And I think SPUS has passed $1 billion in assets under management. So he reviewed 210 out of the 288 holdings, ETFs in SPUS and halal. He cross-referenced it with sources like the BDS database, UFLPA reports, NGO research, SEC filings, Zionist ties, Uyghur forced laborers, and other ethical concerns. And again, this research isn't perfect, but it's a starting point. And again, when he did, go into the research in more detail, he found that Google, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, in terms of the technology side, did not pass that ethical screening. Johnson and Johnson, MDT, which is Mtronics, Stryker, didn't pass on the healthcare side. Procter and Gamble, Nike, Target didn't pass on the consumer goods side. And then for the energy side, ExxonMobil, Schlumberger, ConocoPhillips didn't pass it on the energy side. So over 100 companies were flagged based on credible, publicly documented links to determine that these companies, although they pass the Sharia compliant investing side, they don't pass the ethical concerns. So these are some of the patterns in the data that were found. So major tech companies most frequently flagged for ethical concerns. Many firms hit both Zionist ties and Uyghur labor red lines. And then these same companies are present in many of the halal ETFs. Like if you go on SPUS and you look at their holdings, you'll see, these companies that were mentioned here, Google, Meta, Johnson & Johnson make up actually a majority of the holdings. And there was a passive complicity. So if we don't investigate, we may be unknowingly be complicit in injustice through passive index investing. So again, as Muslims, we need to divest from these companies. There was, when the protests were big, a lot of discussion was us as Muslims, we needed during the university protests, excuse me, um, a large reason why the students were protesting was because the universities were investing in companies that weren't ethical. So, and their whole claim that they were protesting to make sure that these universities, that these institutions that they go to, need to divest from these companies. But in our homes, we need to do a better job of divesting from these companies. In our community, these discussions need to be had in our homes as well. And I think this is really, really critical. And I don't see this discussion happen often enough. So here's what I've done based on this research. So I've divested from HLAL and SPUS. I screen individual stocks for ethical alignment. I try to reinvest in companies that both ethical and halal screens that pass both of them, but there is no ethical and halal screen on the marketplace currently. And I've shared my portfolio transparently to help others as well. And this is what Al Kebab has done, and I've been trying to model this as well. And again, this isn't financial advice, but it's a call for conscious investing. So your call to action, inshallah, is kind of try to do your best to go beyond fund labels, audit your own investments, help to refine the research with your own insights. So there's been, again, that Google sheet is really good, but we should be consistently updating it, adding to it as a community, inshallah, to kind of grow it, and we can kind of find opportunities where this company, they've done the research to determine, hey, this company passes Sharia compliance screening and it's really ethical in terms of their actions. And I think it would be a good and the company has solid financials, when you look at their balance sheet and their statement of cash flows and their income statement. So company is an opportunity to invest, and it kind of passes all of those checks. It is kind of hard to come by. I'm not gonna lie to you. This kind of gets towards the active investing side, and most people do have full-time jobs and they don't have time to monitor their portfolio and find which companies have passed all these screenings. But I think if us as Muslims, we collaborate together, I think we can, ease the burden for us as a whole. And then remember, every dollar is a vote for the kind of world we want to build. So I think, do your best to try to do a better job of, paying attention to this, and inshallah, we can move the needle into a better place. So again, Jazakallah khairan for listening to this video. If you had benefited from it, please do make sure to share, subscribe, and like it, inshallah, to, help get the conversation going. And yeah, inshallah, try to do your best to not just do halal investing, but ethical halal investing, which is kind of the whole point of this conversation. And if you have anything to add, please add in the comments below. So, Jazakallah khairan for your time.